Imagine just for a second, you're a parent,
Yeah.
and your son, he's got his whole life ahead of him, dreams, ambitions,
All right.
and then he just vanishes.
No.
No trace, phone calls unanswered, every lead you get goes nowhere.
It's
And every day, you're just eaten up with not knowing. That's what Shelton Sanders' family has been dealing with for, well, over 20 years.
it's every parent's worst nightmare. And sadly, it happens way too often.
And that's what we're going to really dig into today, the case of Shelton Sanders, a young man who just disappeared back in 2001. We've got police reports, we've got what people saw, even interviews with his family. It's a lot to go through, but we're going to try and make sense of it all.
Absolutely. And as we go through this, think about if you were in Shelton's family's shoes, what would that be like? I mean, someone you love just vanishes and all you have are questions.
So let's start with the basics. June 20th, 2001. Shelton, he's 25 years old, a computer programmer, also a student at the University of South Carolina.
Yeah.
He doesn't show up for work. Now, I know people miss work, it happens, but Shelton, he wasn't like that. He was responsible, always kept in touch with his family, so when he didn't show, everyone knew something was wrong.
Yeah, it's that break in the routine. That's what tells you something's off. And for his mom, Peggy, that fear, it turned into this desperate search, calling hospitals, even reaching out to family in Jacksonville, Florida. Just imagine that feeling of not knowing, of helplessness.
And the last anyone heard from Shelton was a call with his mother the night before. He said he'd be home late, booking hotel rooms in Colombia for a friend's bachelor party.
And to make things even more complicated, he wasn't even driving his own car that night. His car was in the shop, so he was borrowing his brother Edwin's. Makes it even harder to retrace his steps.
Absolutely. And then on top of all that, the family had to wait. Shelton's father, William, went to file a missing person report, but they told him he had to wait 48 hours because Shelton was an adult.
Yeah, that 48-hour rule, it's standard procedure, but in a case like this, every minute counts. It's got to be incredibly frustrating for the family.
As the investigation got going, the police started to put together a timeline of what they knew about Shelton's movements. They talked to friends and family, and they found out that Shelton had been with a friend, Mark Richardson, on the night he disappeared. There were a few people who saw them together checking out hotels in Colombia between 9 and 11 p.m. on June 19th.
So Mark, he becomes a key part of the investigation. He's the last person known to have seen Shelton alive. But here's where things take a really strange turn.
Yeah, it gets dark. Mark's neighbors, they told the police they heard what sounded like gunshots coming from his trailer around 11:30 that night. Now, Mark said it was just his car backfiring, but you can see why the investigators would be suspicious.
Of course. Gunshots, real or not, change everything. Mark goes from a witness to a possible suspect. And suddenly, the idea that something really bad happened to Shelton becomes very real.
Now, through this whole thing, Shelton's father, William, he just never gave up. He spent almost 2 years chasing down every lead, even doing his own investigating, putting himself in some risky situations, all to try and find his son.
It's incredible. William's determination, it shows you the power of hope, the refusal to give up when faced with the unimaginable.
And almost 2 years to the day after Shelton vanished, there's a break in the case, but it comes from a totally unexpected place. April 2003, a sheriff's deputy sees a car with 4 flat tires just sitting in an apartment complex parking lot.
And I bet I know what car that was.
You got it. Edwin's car, the one Shelton was driving when he disappeared. Pretty amazing discovery, right? It brings back some hope, but also just deepens the mystery.
For sure.
Inside the car, they find some odd things, some dead flowers, like maybe he was going to give them to someone, and an old newspaper from June 19th, the day he vanished. But no Shelton. No real clues either.
Those flowers, though, it's like they're a reminder that he had hopes and dreams, a future that was taken away. It makes Shelton real, you know? Not just a name in a case file, but a person.
And here's where it gets even more interesting. The police check Mark's cell phone records, and guess what? He was in the same spot as that abandoned car the night Shelton disappeared. Could that just be a coincidence?
Hard to say. But that cell phone record, it puts Mark right at a key location in the investigation. It's a big deal.
And then, when the police interview Mark again, he gives them this flimsy alibi about being with a woman who left him stranded near, you guessed it, that same apartment complex.
But what he does next, that's what really gets the investigators' attention.
Yeah, he starts asking them all these hypothetical questions like, what happens if someone dies accidentally? How do you get rid of a body? Does that sound like an innocent person to you?
Not really. It's like he's revealing something he knows, what they call guilty knowledge. An innocent person, especially someone who's already a suspect, wouldn't bring those things up unless they had something to hide.
So even though there's no body, no murder weapon, the police decide to make a move. 2005, they arrest Mark Richardson, charge him with Shelton's murder. The whole case against him is built on what the neighbor said about the gunshots and those weird questions Mark asked.
It was a risky move. Trying to get a conviction with just circumstantial evidence is tough. And of course, the defense jumped all over that, saying there's just not enough solid proof to connect Mark to any actual crime. It became a real battle of stories. The prosecution saying it was planned, the defense saying the police just focused on Mark because it was easy and ignored other leads.
And the jury, they had to sort through all that uncertainty. The trial went on for over a week, lots of emotional testimony, people saying different things. Must have been a lot of pressure on those jurors.
Oh, absolutely. They were deciding Shelton's fate and, in a way, whether his family would get any justice.
And in the end, it was just too much. 2008, the jury couldn't agree on a verdict. Mistrial. Devastating for Shelton's family. After all that waiting, hoping, still no answers.
It shows you that justice, it's not always simple. Sometimes you just can't get to the truth no matter how hard you try.
Mark got out on bail, and, get this, they never tried him again for Shelton's murder. He's still a person of interest, but officially Shelton Sanders is still missing.
Just gone. But not forgotten.
No, not forgotten. His family, they're still looking for answers, offering a $25,000 reward for any information that helps them find his remains. They just want to bring him home.
It's so understandable, that need for closure, for some kind of peace, even when you've lost someone you love.
We actually talked to Shelton's sister, Wolveria. She was only 11 when he disappeared. She talked about growing up without her brother, always wondering what happened, all those memories they never got to make, the things they never got to do together. It really makes you think about the impact a disappearance has, how it affects the whole family.
It's like this open wound that never really heals.
Wolveria organized a memorial for Shelton in 2021, 20 years after he vanished. A way to remember him, to show that his life, even though it was cut short, it mattered.
That's so powerful. Shows you the strength of the human spirit, how love can endure even through the worst kind of tragedy.
Shelton's father, William, he often thinks about the last conversation they had. Shelton told him, "Dad, I'm a big bear hug. I'm going to make you very proud of me."
Oh, that just breaks your heart. A father and son, dreams for the future, and then it's all gone.
Now, remember how we said Shelton was driving his brother's car because his own was in the shop? Well, it turns out, in the weeks before he disappeared, Shelton had been acting a little paranoid.
Oh, really? So his state of mind, could that have been a factor in his disappearance? Maybe it led him into a dangerous situation.
It's possible,
Yeah.
but we have to be careful. Just because he was paranoid doesn't mean that's what caused him to vanish.
Right. You can't jump to conclusions. And it's important to remember, even though the police were really focused on Mark, they never completely ruled out other possibilities.
Like what?
Well, there could be someone else, someone nobody even knows who was involved. We just don't know.
It's true. So here we are, a young man with so much potential, gone without a trace. A suspect, tried but never convicted, walking free. A family in limbo, holding on to hope, but needing answers.
It's a case that really stays with you. Makes you think about all the mysteries out there, the impact they have on the people left behind.
It's a reminder that even with all the technology we have today, some disappearances just remain unsolved.
Absolutely. No body, no crime scene, no clear motive. It makes it incredibly hard for law enforcement to solve these cases.
And that's why cases like this need as much attention as possible. Somebody out there might know something that seems small, but could be the key to cracking this case wide open.
Maybe they saw something, heard something, but didn't think it was important at the time. You never know what detail might make the difference.
Exactly. And that's where you, our listeners, come in. Check out the show notes for this episode. We've got links to resources where you can learn more about Shelton's case and how you can get involved. If you have any information, even if it seems insignificant, please contact the authorities. That one little detail could be what brings Shelton home.
You really can make a difference. Never underestimate that.
This whole deep dive, it's been a lot. So much frustration that there are no answers, but also so much respect for how strong Shelton's family has been. And there's still that hope that somehow there will be justice.
What do you think happened to Shelton Sanders? Do you think the police had the right guy? Was it random, or was there something more going on?
We may never know the whole truth, but one thing's for sure. Shelton deserves justice, and his family deserves some peace. So let's keep talking about this, keep his memory alive, and never give up hope that he'll be found. Cases like Shelton's, they really make you think, don't they?
Yeah.
One minute you're making plans, and the next, you're just gone.
It really does make you realize how precious life is and how important it is to appreciate every moment.
We've gone through a lot with this deep dive. The timeline, the people involved, the evidence or the lack of it, all the twists and turns this case took.
We might never know all the answers, but looking back, what really stuck with you?
I think it's Shelton's family. They never gave up on him. Their love for him is still so strong after all this time.
It's amazing, their strength, their hope. They've been through so much, but they keep fighting for justice.
It makes you think about the whole idea of using circumstantial evidence in court. It worked in some ways, but obviously not enough in this case.
It's tricky, right? Sometimes, even without direct proof, the circumstances can really point to what happened. But you have to be so careful with it, and sometimes it just doesn't give you a clear enough picture.
And you saw that with the jury. They just couldn't agree based on what they heard.
It's that beyond a reasonable doubt standard. It's tough to meet, especially when you're missing key pieces of the puzzle.
This deep dive, it's been fascinating, but it's also been really sad. It's one of those stories that gets under your skin, makes you wonder about all the mysteries that are still out there and how they affect the people involved.
It shows you that even with all the technology and science we have now, some cases just stay unsolved.
But even then, I think there's something powerful about seeing people like the Sanders family keep searching for the truth. Their hope, their refusal to give up, it's inspiring.
It's what keeps us all going, that belief that even when things seem impossible, the truth will come out eventually.
If you've been moved by Shelton's story, please think about helping in any way you can. We've got links in the show notes where you can find out more about how to get involved. Even just sharing his story or donating to the reward fund, it all makes a difference.
Every little bit helps. Hopefully it'll lead to some answers for Shelton's family.
That's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us as we explored this case, this heartbreaking story that's still unfolding.
Until next time, stay curious and never underestimate the power of hope.